Good morning, everyone, and welcome to
Good
I guess
morning.
our morning. Yeah, I guess we're doing morning editions of Pulse the Heartland now. I would say this was a definitely far from my choice. I was in bed about 10 minutes ago, so,
I like how on our main pod we're like, yeah, we're taking a hiatus, and this is the most busy week we've done since we started this thing.
I was thinking that exact same thing too. But I was just like, we talked about if we're gonna do and be real about doing college sports. When something like fucking this happens out of fucking nowhere, we got to make some room for it. So, and I was
Yeah.
being a little lazy on Thursday night, so I guess we do it on Saturday mornings now. This is 30, and I don't like it one bit. So I would say so. And again, thanks to you guys that are watching this live or will be listening to it later. But I would say again, we're going to be doing a little bit more of these smaller pods with smaller subject. This one's kind of a big one though, with not only just college football, but we got two big powers that are shifting to a different conference here. So. I would say, Joey, do you want to? I would say you want to give the people the socials while I get everything set up here.
Yeah, as you can reach us on Twitter and Instagram at Heartland Pulse, and then Facebook and YouTube. Just search Pulse of the Heartland. We should be live on those right now, and moving forward, probably live on both those. So yeah,
Boom.
just search Pulse
And
of the Heartland.
look at that at the bottom there, Joey. I just took away your job as well. Got the socials fucking like we look like ESPN in this thing now.
Oh dang, dude!
Oh
fuck yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Bryant hosts, and we get all these like new fancy items.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
I would say
it
that
crashes his computer. It takes an hour to get on, but everything else.
Yeah. Well, once I do it, and hopefully nothing crashes in the meantime, we should be good though. But no, again, thanks to everyone that might be watching live, and appreciate you all that will be listening to it later. Then, but I'm assuming everyone else is having Mountain Dew or OJ or this morning like I am, or Joey, you actually you have a Busch Light or something over there?
Nope, I just got a one of those sparkling ice waters. I mean, do I have alcohol running through my veins? Probably. Had a few drinks last night, but nothing fresh this morning. I will say we went to kind of a bougie date night last night, and I had a cucumber ginger martini. I had two of them. They were fucking fire, man. Oh, so good. Yeah, I was full Katrina, pinky out, filtered water.
You can say, do you have the reverse osmosis water going though? That's when we know.
No, I will at some point though.
Yeah, well, and I mean, Joey, and you know this as well. I mean, cucumber is just a pickle before it's a pickle. So I mean, you gotta love that.
Yep, we had pickled carrots and cauliflower with charcuterie board. Yeah,
little charcuterie board.
All kinds of fucking fancy last night.
Well, hell yeah, Ryan, you do anything fancy, or are you a simpleton like me, get a little Taco Bell last night?
What did I do last night? Oh, I had Dairy Queen last night. So yeah, I'm not fancy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would say Dairy Queen's about as fancy as you need to be on a Friday night, in my opinion.
That's exactly right.
Got the fancy like Applebee's on a date night.
No. Well, actually, speaking of college football, we can kind of just jump in since we heard that 10,000 fucking times during the season here. But I would say I figured, because I wasn't sure. I apologize, Ryan. I only got Iowa and Iowa State news quickly. If there's anything else, you throw it in there. But I figured Joey, since he was kind enough to join me for sure, was Iowa landed that. Did you see that 5-star Caden Proctor that they landed?
I sure did. He's out of Southeast Polk. He's 6'7", 330. Highest rated recruit that Iowa's ever gotten. Not just in the Kirk Ferentz era, but ever. Yeah, pretty pumped about that. I know Iowa's done really well with, developing tackles and talent on the offensive line. So we'll see. It's a big deal for the Hawkeyes to land someone like that, and then also see if he turns out. I think Tristan Wirfs is kind of standard now, so we'll see if he turns out that good.
It is funny you bring up Tristan Wirfs. I would say my computer is so damn slow I won't be able to pull it up. But have you seen the photo of those two together? He's bigger than him.
No, not yet. Let me pull that up.
Yeah, I mean, you can just look up Caden Proctor, Tristan Wirfs. He's a couple inches taller. You can tell Wirfs has been in the – obviously, he's gone through the Iowa weight program. He's a little slimmer. But, I mean, the kid's just a mirror image of the guy.
Right.
So,
yeah, no, he looks stacked, really. So I like that. Share my screen real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a big dude. I think he's definitely got a college football body. So we'll see what happens, man.
Okay, so real quick, Joe, I apologize. How do we there we go. Yeah, we'll share that. There we go. I would say you can tell. I mean, honestly, when I first looked at it, I had to figure out which one was Werf's and which one was Proctor. So that's a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that you're getting that guy early, as well as he's our kind of hometown favorite. But I mean, that Aaron Graves. I mean, they've been doing amazing ever since the all the issues the last couple of years with them. They're still doing a very good job with getting those types of linemen in, which I think college football, and we'll kind of get to it a little bit later, and because a lot of these moves, this isn't about getting to college and getting an education now. I think this is more what is going to set, set up me and my family best for not only success but a potential shot at the NFL as well.
Yeah. Did anyone hear what his NIL deal from Back Pocket is? I just want to know.
From Back Pocket, if that's
Exactly.
the big money maker in town, I don't know, man.
Mm-hmm.
He did say he
Okay,
did.
Wait. What's the other one that? Oh, Big Grove was the one from Solon that went in.
Okay, now if you had told me Big Grove offered him, a couple commas, that would have made sense. They've been expanding like fucking crazy. So,
and Nate Kading is a partial owner with that. So yeah,
good on him. I actually did not know that. So now I'm learning something new, hosting my own damn pod here. But
so
what was I gonna say? He did say he was offered some NIL deals, but like it was like $250,000, $500,000. I think he even said $1 million from these other larger, because he basically got offered from everyone in the country. So I think that's, like we were saying, setting him up for being able to get to the NFL. If you're a lineman, why, and you live in Iowa, why the fuck do you go anywhere else?
Yeah, I mean, he goes there for love of the game and isn't chasing the money like all those other idiots. Iowa, playing for free, just doing his thing. No one's gonna pay him. Good for him.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure no one's paying this kid. He won't have any endorsement deal.
Exactly.
I know Lindenbaum, what did he say? He got like 40 or 50,000 by, and that was when this was before it fucking exploded. So if he can make
donated it right to the children's hospital.
Yeah, exactly. So as long as he's got, I'm sure his family is more, and again, that size, I think you're more than willing to know in 3 years you're gonna have a son that has a very good shot at getting to the NFL. So,
So Pulse of the Heartland is starting the shot put dance. Most important move in Iowa football is the wave. As long as you can do that, you can come play.
Oh my God, we're gonna fucking move on with that, because I was nice with starting with Iowa.
Go Hawks! Go Hawks!
The tradition of not traditions. So, and hopefully I can share my screen here and get a little bit better. I was like, the big news that I was like, no, the only thing that I knew that was really coming along, and I drove by yesterday, it looks fucking awesome, is the pedestrian bridge that's coming in. So I'm going to try and share the screen here real quick, because they finally got the walkway. That is coming in. And again, from the photos that you've seen on how it's going to light up, it's going to avoid having the drunks in the in the window all the way. I mean, it's going to be it's going to look pretty damn good here. So let me see. I'm going to start sharing it here. All right, get from there.
Sure. Well, I see a black screen.
Yep. So
there it is.
There we go. Sorry. Hey, give my computer some time. It's like me. It's like a dungeon. It take a little bit of time to start. But no, and so you can finally see that they've had the two towers up around for a little while. They finally got that walkway coming in. I mean, again, a way I guess for drunks not to cross the street, make it more appealing, because again, this is a little bit more of a business now than just looking nice for college football. You got to attract these kids. Why do they want to come here? You have nice facilities like this. They've cleared out and they have a new courtway and brand new facilities on the north side of the building. We're comparing that to 12 years ago when I was in the lots drinking a Busch Light, watching the game from the big screen, because that was the big addition. They hadn't closed off the horseshoe. That I would say we've seen a lot of improvements. That's for sure.
Nice. Well, bully for you.
Yeah, bully for me. What are you? You've been watching too much of The Boys. You got that English that English accent there. So, but like I said, yeah, I mean, there wasn't really much going on with Iowa State. We didn't have a 5-star lineman commit to us, so I got to talk about our bridge every once in a while.
I mean, have you ever, and is there ever anything going on with Iowa State? Just saying.
Hey, we won a Fiesta Bowl a couple years ago. Come on.
I know it's July 2nd, but I want to get this college football podcast started off on the right foot. Go Hawkeyes.
Well then let's go into it. So out of fucking nowhere, and I was so busy at work I couldn't even react to it. But USC and UCLA decided to go to the Big Ten. I mean, Joe, you're residential Big Ten expert and lover. What are your initial thoughts?
I hate it. I
hate it.
I don't care. I don't care about the traditions. I don't care about the fucking. I don't know. The market doesn't matter to me. Like it's just geographically stupid. I hate it so much. Like just disband all the conferences and just make 4 fucking regions, and then everyone can schedule everybody at this point. Like there's no reason why you should go from New Jersey to LA for any sporting event, and now they're going to have to do it multiple times a year for every fucking sport. Stupid. Yeah. I just, it's atrocious to me. We're just going to get into players sitting out like they do in professional sports because it's too much of a trip or blah, blah, blah. They're just, their bodies are taking too big of a toll. It's dumb. I've hated it. I don't know. I've always hated it since they talked about Cal State Fullerton joining the Big Ten in wrestling. Like just don't do it. It's dumb. Yeah. So anyway, I don't like it. I don't even care about the traditions. USC, cool, bring them over. UCLA doesn't fucking matter to me in football whatsoever. They never have. I know they're going to be good for the basketball part, but they really haven't been relevant the last few years anyway. So that doesn't matter to me either. So I really very, very much dislike it.
I would say I kind of agree. I think, I mean, and we've seen this unfortunately for a few years coming. You're going to lose those traditions because you have – like a lot of articles I read is these teams from the Pac-12 go, we got Soonered, we got horned because in the middle of the fucking night it was like oh god, who's the owner that took the Browns from Baltimore over to Cleveland, or I'm sorry, that took the Colts from Baltimore over to Indianapolis on the overnight and didn't tell anyone. They literally left in the middle of the night. This is the exact same thing. And I mean, you talk about travel. I was hearing yesterday, and I put in the notes. A trip from Los Angeles to Piscataway. That's going to be your longest. That's going to be your longest drive. That's going to be a 40-hour drive for these equipment managers that have to drive. The equipment, the truck and trailer all the way across the country. I believe I heard from stats. Nebraska to Los Angeles is farther than anywhere in the Big 12 right now. You have to travel, and we got West Virginia out in Timbuktu, and you going all the way down to Lubbock. That's a shorter distance, and Rutgers is currently closer to Iceland than it is Los Angeles. So, yeah, I mean, I can get why, and understandably, hey, instead of driving out to Lincoln, Nebraska, you have to take a trip out to Los Angeles to play UCLA in the middle of November or August, whatever it is. Like I said, you're kind of losing. Big Ten is supposed to be ground and pound Midwest, and now I get it. It's for money. It's for survival. It's you and the SEC right now that are kind of tit for tat, and it just kind of I don't know. I think it's ruining college athletics as well. Ryan, what do you think?
I think this is just a dumb move. I don't see the advantage for these California teams joining. Anyway, they're not going to compete against an Ohio State. They already can't compete in the Pac-12, to be honest. It doesn't seem like. So yeah, I just don't see any advantage to these guys moving over to the Big Ten, and they're not going to win recruiting battles. I mean, maybe someone that's going to Iowa or Rutgers or something would rather spend their time in California, a little bit better weather. But I don't know. I don't see any advantage to these teams doing this other than maybe a better TV deal or something.
Yeah, that's got to be the whole thing is the TV deal. I mean, the Big Ten Network, I mean, regardless of what we could say about geography and shit, I mean, it is the best TV deal that there is out there. I mean, the schools make a shit ton of money from that. I mean, that's the only reason why they would want to join this.
And now you're about
otherwise,
to
I agree.
Los Angeles.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. Just give them fucking Lincoln, Nebraska. Tell them make the Pac-13 and just go from there. Like, I don't give a fuck about the rest.
You get Nebraska. Jesus.
Here's our counter offer. You get Nebraska.
Lincoln, you get a play in Lincoln every year. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think that is unfortunately Fox and ESPN are the kind of the big puppet masters here that are bringing this together. And if you want me to be honest, like, and again, you're bringing in brands. USC, UCLA. I mean, UCLA's got the basketball program that's up and going. USC is kind of mid-tier basketball, but their money program is football. But the bad thing, and I agree with people that have said this, is first off, Larry Scott ran that conference into the ground. How they couldn't get a better media deal. How everything they did was just like someone goes, "This is exactly what you need to do," and then he just fucking did a 180 and did a fucking polar opposite and fucked that whole conference, you know. But I mean, the USC is supposed to be the golden gem of that conference. You know, they've won the most Rose Bowls in history by far, you know, because they dominate the West Coast, but no one gives a shit about the West Coast because, you know, USC as a team has failed to be one of those top tier teams. Ohio State, they're in the conversation every year. Michigan's trying to be that, and they've kind of failed, but they, you know, they're at least somewhat upper tier. Alabama, Georgia,
made the playoffs last year
at times. Yeah. I mean, Alabama, Georgia, they've been up there. USC, you know the last Pac-12 team to make the playoffs? Washington.
Oregon.
And they're not the
Oh,
top
wow,
tier.
shit.
Yeah. It's been Washington, and I don't think anyone else in the Pac-12. I would have to look at the stats real quick, but, I mean, USC hasn't made the playoffs.
Maybe
right.
Done what they've gotten the advantages of USC is Texas. They've got the advantage of recruiting. They're the top tier brand. You play for USC because you want to be proud to be a Trojan. They have the tradition, and they haven't done anything with it. So now they've brought down their whole conference, and then they bolt in the middle of the fucking night after they've lowered the value of their conference.
And maybe Lincoln Riley will turn the program around. He'll have it's, you know, they're joining in 2024 it sounds like, so he'll have a full year before that to maybe turn the team around. But yeah, you're right. It seems like they just completely got destroyed.
That will be a trivia question in about 10 to 15 years. Who is the only coach to coach in 3 different conference championships or something? If he can make it to the Pac-12 championship this year and then somehow eventually make it to the Big Ten, which again, USC, they got the recruits. It's just, I mean, I think they got the swagger. I think they can start coming back. And a lot of people are thinking, well, Lincoln had to have known about this. I don't think the timelines match up. I think he got there around January, and it sounds like these talks probably officially started around like 4 to 5 months ago. So I think I think it started right after, and it was probably one of these, because now we have Lincoln and we have a top tier football program. We feel good about basketball. You know, talking with UCLA, I think it's adapt or die for these conferences now, because honestly, the next thing we're going to talk about. So what the fuck does the Pac-12 do? You know, you've lost your 2 blue bloods, really. I mean, who do they got left? Oregon, and Oregon's only
they've got the Nike money at least.
Yeah, I mean they've got Oregon, and they've got brand recognition on one team. Otherwise, I will be honest, when I was making this agenda, I had to go through the teams because I had 13 teams on there, and I was trying to figure out what it is. Now, this might be just admitting stupidity, but I didn't realize I had Stanford on there twice. But I can tell you, I should have been able to recognize immediately what teams were and weren't there, and it took me a couple times because it's like, who the fuck cares about Pac-12 unless you're betting at 11:30 at night and you're trying to make up on your losses for the evening? You're hoping that Oregon State, Hawaii somehow hits the over. You know,
right?
It just I don't know, man. I mean, I guess for me, excuse me. Initially with the Pac-12, I think they're going to go one of 2 ways, and I don't think the first one, but you either have to bring in relevant schools that might not have the academics or that are on the way to meet it. Because look at the Big 12 last year. Honestly, the Big 12 was supposed to be dead at this time last year with the 2 schools leaving. And since we had the 1-year jump and jumped the gun, we're kind of in the driver's seat now. We have a conference of 12. We brought in 3 G5 schools and an independent. Now we're kind of in the driver's seat because here's the Pac-12. They don't know, are they going to bring in San Diego State, a Fresno State, a Boise State to try and prop up the conference and say, hey, here's the new and revamped Pac-12. Excuse me. Or do they try and consolidate or try and come over to a potential lesser weakened Big 12 after Oklahoma and Texas leave, and we just create a super conference with all known Power 5 conference teams, and maybe we're the first one to jump to 24 or 20. I mean, I don't really know where the Pac-12 goes from here.
Yeah, the only thing I can really think of is to try to do something with the Mountain West. Try to get a few of those teams maybe. But you're not looking at any big schools. I mean, you look at Boise State, who usually has a pretty successful team, and that's a brand that everybody's. San Diego, you mentioned. Colorado State, every once in a while, has an okay. I know they had a decent season this last season.
Larry Eustace used to coach there.
But yeah, I mean, yeah. What do they do? What are really the good options for them?
Well, yeah, and they're not going to attract like a Notre Dame or anything. So, especially without USC there, so there's no way that they're going to be coming over. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what you do as the Pac-12. It just seems like. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I don't think they're done getting gouged yet, to be honest.
Right. Yeah, and I think the conference is just probably going to be done, and more teams are going to have to join the Mountain West. Like I think the Mountain West will be the next Power 5 conference, I guess, with Oregon State, Washington State, like having them join that area. I don't know what else you do. I mean, Utah was already there once, and they came over. You just have Hawaii jump in there. I'm not 100% sure. We'll see.
I could see with Oregon though, if that is the route, them going to like a Big 12 though, just because that's more kind of their play style, anyways. Big 12 type football.
I mean,
plus
exactly.
You got a bigger brand than what the Super Mountain West would be too.
Right. Yeah, and we were talking already about long trips from LA to New Jersey and shit. What's the difference between that and Morgantown to Eugene, Oregon? I mean, it's probably got to be about the same. So, but I do have to log off, guys. We got stuff to do, and I know we started late, but I'm gonna have to get here. So you guys keep.
Nope, you're good, man.
Keep it real.
All right, see you, Joey.
Yeah, have a happy 4th of July, guys. We'll see you later.
You too.
No problem. I really think that the probably. And what I've seen realistically is from I was hoping to get Joey's take on this, but they talked about when the Big 12 was going under with the AAU and stuff. AAU schools were huge, and the two schools that are there's a few AAU schools in the Pac-12, but Oregon and Washington are the big ones. And I think realistically those two brands, if they're invited over the Big 10, I don't say you've already got a crumbling conference. I think you jump ship at that point. And join the next mega conference to compete with the SEC.
Yeah, I think the Big 10 is it really? Are they really looking to do a 20 team conference? I guess I haven't heard that before.
I mean, at this point, I think we're kind of going to start doing mega conferences, regional, because I mean this already puts them to 16, and from the way it sounds, is they're not done yet. So I've seen a lot, and because people have to start getting creative to make all this realignment work. I think they might even the way they'll look at it is a 5-team pod. So you would have the West Coast, USC, UCLA. Say they bring in Oregon, Washington, and then whatever other team is out in the West Coast. Let's say Colorado, so they would have those 5 teams in one pod. Then they'd have another 5 teams: Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Illinois in the second pod. Northwestern, you know what I'm saying? So they'd have that 20 teams. I mean, you can make it work any way that you want, and with the money that's in college football, they're going to find a way to make it work, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, go ahead.
You mentioned Notre Dame. You got to think at some point they're joining a conference. I mean, they got some respect this last year. Getting some votes. They were top 10. But you got to think that at some point they're going to be like, okay, we don't want anyone to question our strength of schedule. Let's join somebody. Let's get the money, the TV money. Let's, all this other stuff, all these other advantages, I guess.
Yep, I would say with Notre Dame, I think that is part of the one they want to bring in another market, and Big Ten wants to be a nationwide conference. I think the SEC they're not quite just all in the Southeast, but they get prime time at all times of the day
Yeah.
exposure. I think Big Ten's trying to do that. You have your 11 a.m. kicks off in Piscataway. You have your 9 p.m. kickoffs in Los Angeles, and now all of a sudden you're able, Big Ten all day, baby. So I
Yeah.
think that's some of it. I think that's Los Angeles market. I think you're bringing in brands, and I think as a also small, like a smaller, if there's a 1 and 1A, you bring in USC, UCLA for the West Coast, and you bring it in because Notre Dame. You can keep your tradition of playing USC.
Hmm.
Notre Dame. Do you want to be the one that gets stuck out? Because from the rumors are going on, Oregon and Washington, they make the logical choice on the West Coast if we're going to have teams that they'll invite, but they're on hold right now because they're waiting to make sure if Notre Dame wants to come. And I think
Oh,
Notre Dame, they really have to start looking at it because it was easy to be independent. You can schedule anyone anywhere, but look at these
yeah.
playoffs and how they get shit on every year. Some of it rightfully so, but
Yeah.
because it's like, why are you scheduling Eastern Michigan or why you play or Navy every year? You got to get into a legit conference, win a conference championship, get that extra data point in order to get
Mhm.
you in the playoffs. And I think they really have to start looking at it now to join the Big Ten.
Pre playoff era, they were able to get by with just their name, and so
Yep.
they didn't have the terribly tough schedule where you're beating up on your your conference rivals. And yeah, now with the playoff era, especially with only 4 teams being put into that playoff,
Mhm.
they need to do something. And at this point now, with these super conferences, with these teams like Cincinnati joining the Big 12, now USC, the Pac-12 never. I know Oregon had a couple teams in the playoff, but the Pac-12 never really had a ton of playoff appearances.
Yep.
So at what point, we've mentioned this before, I really think they have to go to an 18 playoff at some point with these super conferences. I
Yep.
just think so.
I agree with that as well. I was going to say you must have really read your notes, or we're just on the same page with the flow of this. Because the next thing
I
we're going to talk about with
I
playoffs.
I literally just woke up and I'm flying at the edge of my seat here.
God damn, you're just a natural over there. So, but I would say, and with Notre Dame as well, their TV. So we're talking about timelines and TV deals and everything. Their TV deal ends in 2025. So I mean, they've only got a
Okay.
couple more years. If they would have to with NBC. I'm sure NBC would look to restructure or find a way to make sure they work with ESPN and stuff. But the
Mhm.
ACC talking about how joining a conference, theirs doesn't end until 2036, and from the sounds of it, they've got a pretty shitty TV contract. So we've kind of talked about, this was mainly USC, UCLA, and the Pac-12 getting poached. I've heard rumors of the SEC go, with the ACC and the bullshit deal they have. It sounds like they're going to try and poach the big names from the ACC too. They're,
Oh,
they're talking Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, Duke potentially, and because then I mean this is just because conference alignment has made us all fucking crazy. Anything can happen now. Yeah. The
yeah.
SEC picks up Duke, so now they're the best at basketball. They already have the best football. They bring in who was it? They one of the team. Wake Forest or whatever. It doesn't matter. Now they have the best baseball sport. It's like they're literally just picking so they have all the men's sports. It seems like.
So question, and I'm really stupid on a lot of this stuff. So this is probably a stupid question, but are they able to do split conferences, like be SEC for football, then ACC for basketball?
No, not a dumb question, and that was going to kind of be at the end. I was going to talk about, but I mean, I think that is where this goes because Joey talked about, how do you make the travel arrangements, because in football it makes sense once a week. Los Angeles Piscataway is going to be the largest example. You go out there one week and then you come back, and
Mhm.
then the next week maybe you go to Columbus and back, and then you're in Los Angeles. So they can make it work with football. But what about even men's basketball? That's another revenue
Well,
sport.
that's such a
Where
longer schedule too.
yeah, and more games exactly. So and the Big Ten assured the UCLA and USC and you have to. They would say if you have the long trip out to the East Coast, they will make it so you probably just have a week or two of road games and you have, because again, these kids as well, you can't. As much as they're professionals with NIL and they are still students, it sounds like they have
Yeah.
to bring tutors, and you're almost bringing the classroom to them when they're on the road than you are, the opposite where it's like, I'll just get caught up. They're going to miss too much time. So I
Yeah.
think when USC and UCLA in basketball, when they go on a trip, they're going to have to do 3 games out. But going back to your point of like split conferences, that's exactly what like wrestling and some of these not profit sports are doing. The Big 12 in the wrestling, Oklahoma State, Iowa, or I'm sorry, Iowa State, and you have a bunch of Big 12 teams, but then you have Boise State in there. You have all these kind of
Okay.
like WAC teams that come in as well. So I think that's the path we're going. You're going to have money sport football be one conference, maybe even men's basketball and women's basketball. And then everything else, it would make more sense for the non-sports to just be regionalized, to be honest,
Yeah, because I mean, I'm trying to think. You look at the ACC, Clemson. Maybe they can succeed in the SEC for both and get the SEC money. But you look at like Duke. For them, it might make sense to go to the SEC for football, but they're the face of the ACC for basketball. You leave the ACC and go to the SEC. Now you're playing Alabama and Auburn, all these super awesome basketball teams, and I don't think they want to have to do that during the basketball season. Especially now with Coach K being gone, who knows what they'll be like as a basketball team.
Well, and that might just be where if their brand starts dipping a little bit and they get the invite, adapt or die, you got to jump in to the SEC,
And that's kind of what with Notre Dame too. Let's see how this new coaching staff does after a couple of years. Because I mean, Brian Kelly had his faults, but he was always successful with that team. He always put a decent product out there. So let's see what the new coaching staff for them. Is their brand going to be worth a lot if they have a couple losing seasons now?
Yeah. I think Notre Dame would be fine. Duke, you might start to lose that because everyone's looking for the downfall of Duke. They want to see them lose finally in the first time in 42 years. But I just think if Duke went to the SEC, and we'll move off this because now we're just going down crazy tangents. But I mean, like if Duke would join the SEC, hey, do you want to fast track to have every team watch you, even if we're not the best football team? Everyone's going to be watching you, and you have the ability to get a Duke education and a fast track to the NFL. Now, all of a sudden, that sounds a little bit better if you have if you have the 4.0 and you're a 4-star athlete, you're going, yeah, why wouldn't? At worst case, I'm falling back on a Duke education. At best, I'm still fast tracked to the NFL with all the eyes watching me. But,
because there's not a lot of Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football games where you have I'm so and so from Duke University coming out.
True.
Yeah.
True, but I would say even to round out this crazy scenario that we're talking about, having these mega conferences and everyone is joining everyone. I think that's going to hurt the small. It's going to be a Big Ten and SEC playoff is how it's going to turn down because you're going to go. Well, everyone plays everyone. How can we not be the logical choice? Because our only loss was Bama. Our only loss was Ohio State. When you have a Big 12, Big 12, ACC, Pac-12 hybrids in there, that might be there. Well, look at Baylor and Oklahoma State. That was one play away from causing a whole clusterfuck in that playoffs with Cincinnati. Where Oklahoma State's only loss was I can't remember. They would have had one loss, the Big 10 or Big 12 champion, and then you have this is what's taking away what's great about college football. We had the Cincinnati 2-year story where they go 12-1, and we go, well, you lost one game, so you don't get to come back. They build that criteria. Now they go 13-0, and they dominate everyone. And they're going, fuck, we can't, and enough people lost as well. But they, you don't get that special moment of Cincinnati getting their shit pushed in by Bama in the playoffs. But if you have an extended playoff, maybe a Cincinnati at 4 plays an Oklahoma State at 5. Now that's an interesting matchup before you get your shit pushed in by Bama or Georgia. I mean, I just think if you don't expand it, SEC and Big Ten are going to go. They're just going to, first off, they're going to push off no auto bid. They're not going to want auto bids at that point. And then they're going to, they're just going to dominate it because you could always make the argument we played the toughest opponents. we should be in the playoffs, or they might even just make their own separate playoff system.
And the funny thing is, when you mentioned to some of the higher coaches that don't want it, they act like you're asking them to do a round robin tournament where you're asking for one more round of playoffs. That's all it is. It'd be one more game. And I understand that's still 60 minutes where you could potentially lose a player from injuries or something. But we're not asking you guys to play every single team in the playoff group. We're just saying, hey, you got hundreds of some schools in the NCAA. Mm-hmm. Make it 8 teams. Like give it a fair fight, because the country's tired of seeing every playoff game being Alabama, Clemson.
Until they start losing money, I don't think. The sad thing is, I think we're stuck with the 4. We're at least stuck until 4 until 25. But the bet, and I know a lot of people say, what are the teams that have the rosters that can compete for a national championship now? It's Bama, Georgia, Ohio State right now, and then you have your next tier, where it's probably LSU, Clemson. You got your next tier, but everyone acts like, well, if it's not one of those 3, they don't have a chance to win that. It's like, so then why does everyone else play the game? If you're just going to anoint those 3 at the beginning of the year, just fucking have them go 9-3, but then just have the playoffs of those. I mean, they can make it a blue blood. That would kind of actually be interesting. If a blue blood tournament at the end of the year. Ohio State, Clemson, LSU. But that's what this is going to turn into. It's just going to be the brand classic rather than, hey, this team is undefeated. So
I'm trying to think who the top 8 were this year. I'm going to pull it up here.
And say, while you're looking it up, I can keep on rambling. But I mean, that's just where we're at with it. And I just have a bad feeling where if things do keep expanding with the Big Ten and SEC, and again, this is now a business. I can't blame them for getting aggressive, going above and beyond, bringing in these brands, bringing in that media money. But I just know the small fries, the Big 12, ACC, even a couple of the independents, we're going to get stuck out every year, and it's just going to. I just have a bad feeling it's going to ruin college sports unless they start expanding that playoff.
Yeah. So, you had the top 8. You had Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Cincinnati, Baylor, Ohio State, Oklahoma State, Notre Dame. So, I would have watched a Georgia versus Notre Dame and Alabama versus Oklahoma State. I mean, I would enjoy that instead of seeing Bama, Michigan, Georgia, Cincinnati. You've got two of the top 4 are the teams you always see.
And we're acting like it would be a bad product if we had an underdog win the championship. The southeast part of the country would hate it, but if Oklahoma State won a national championship, cool, Big 12 championship. Me, rah, Homer Bryant all day. But if you we're just acting like it's bad for the sport to have 4 more games that's going to make ESPN money, and we're going to see different matchups too. But
like I said, it's one more week. You're not doing a round robin of 8 teams.
We're acting like we don't have a month off, and bowl games in between. But
and how often do you see like an SEC versus Big 12? You don't see that a lot. So just we would have had Alabama versus Oklahoma State. That would have been a fun matchup. I mean, Alabama probably would have killed Oklahoma State. But Oklahoma State had a lot of athleticism that Alabama may not have seen. So
Oklahoma State had that elite defense, but they have an athlete at quarterback with Spencer, and he just couldn't throw the ball. He was not that great of a quarterback yet. So it might have been 10-0, but you would have gone all of a sudden. Shit, maybe the Big 12. They're competing with Bama. That's the epitome of college football. Like it or leave it. They are the top. So if we could compete, go ahead.
That's a lot of non-Big 12 fans. A lot of the things that I hear are, the Big 12 doesn't have defense. They don't know how to play defense against these schools.
10 years ago,
then let them prove it. You're not really letting them prove it because you're not letting the Big 12 or the Pac-12 in the top 4 teams, basically.
Mm-hmm. That's just and you heard me. You get me and Trent riled up. Whenever we're talking about, or we always get riled up when we get to Big 12 and defending them. But that was a take 10 years ago. Now it's kind of shifted. We're a little bit more defensive and not as good offensively because we've had to adapt to teams that would just take advantage of it. But it feels like a scenario where it was like, hey, remember when the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors were 13-0 with Colt Brennan, and then they sicked them to the dogs with Georgia, the number whatever 6 team that year. They get absolutely just trounced, and they go, see, this is why we don't invite these teams. It's like, it's because you put them against a fucking meat grinder,
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, and I'm thinking back, during the first couple of years of the playoffs when LSU or TCU had such strong teams, with Trevon Boykin and Josh Dotson being the two big names. Yeah, they would put up 70 or 80 points a game, but they also would only allow opponents like 20 points. So, and yet they weren't included in the playoff because I think they lost one game to Baylor, and Baylor at that point too was an absolute beast. And so, yeah, that one there, that I was pretty sour about that one, and I guess I still kind of am as I'm mentioning it here today. But how can you not let a TCU type team that was just that powerful even get a shot at it?
Well, that one specifically, and that's what caused the whole I guess snowball effect, was they had lost 61-58 Baylor TCU, either one way or another. It doesn't matter because they both at the end of the year were co-champions 12-1, but we didn't have a conference championship game. So that's where Saban came out and goes, how can you be in the playoffs if you can't win your conference championship game? Then all of a sudden we create a conference championship game round robin, and then Bama a couple years later didn't make their conference championship and goes, I think it's the best teams. I can't blame Saban for flipping around, his opinion, but that's where all of this kind of started was, they're going, and that's probably a big example as well. People remember TCU, they were so great. They lost 61-58 because of no defense. It's like, because you're also playing one of the most elite offenses that year with Baylor, so.
Yeah. Those were easily the two best offenses in college football that year.
Yeah, and I believe, if I remember correctly, I'll have to look it up, but they just fucking trounced in the bowl games. It wasn't even fun to watch because it's like, oh, they're up 42-14 at halftime because because no one is going to stop this offense. So.
I'm trying to think who it was. It might have been Iowa State. I can't remember for sure, but TCU scored so many touchdowns in a game that they ran out of fireworks.
Yeah, the old Chiefs. It was Iowa State. I was at a wedding that day, and I remember looking at my phone or turning on the TV, and I was like, 49-0 at halftime. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not watching this shit.
It was fun to watch as a TCU fan. It was a blast. But yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah.
At the end of the year, you feel like somebody shoved something up your ass because it's like, okay, there's this amazing season and nothing.
That's nothing. Another wrinkle to it. TCU's final game of the year, because again, I think they had just lost to Baylor, so they had their one loss, and they had to put the style points to kind of get up there. They beat the fuck out of Iowa State 52-0, and they moved down to, because they were number 4 at that point. Yeah. Beat a team 52-0 and went down 2 spots in the rankings and got pushed out of the playoffs.
Yeah. So, and I remember them playing like the Patrick Mahomes Texas Tech teams too, where it would come down to last minute, where again, those would be high scoring games too, but you'd look back and it's like, well, it makes sense. Patrick Mahomes, it makes a lot of sense. And so, I guess they had a couple bad defensive games, but for the most part, they only allowed like 20 points a game. Gary Patterson had pretty good defenses under his belt.
Yeah. Nope, he absolutely did, and I would say good enough where out of nowhere he was actually able to get them to a couple Rose Bowls as well, or at least the one versus Wisconsin here. But now trying to bring it back to the subject I actually had before we wrap it up here. With the Pac-12 merger and everything, you're losing USC with 25 wins in the Rose Bowl. UCLA with 7. I mean, they got 32 of them. And now all of a sudden the Big Ten and Pac-12 might be combining forces. I mean, what the hell does this do to the Rose Bowl? I mean, it's the granddaddy of them all. And now all of a sudden, these schools, they're not focused on like, hey, we have to play very well because we're going to get to the Rose Bowl this year. You're talking about we have to play very well because we're going to the playoffs this year. Yeah. I don't think anyone gives a shit about the Rose Bowl anymore.
I'll be honest with you, I don't. Like I never really have, to be honest. I guess you got a parade and you've got an old stadium that they play in, but I don't know.
I think you got to be a Big Ten or Pac-12 to truly appreciate it. I mean, I can appreciate it's in the Coliseum and the majesty of the game, but like as a Big 12 fan, it's not like appointment television. If it's 2 good teams, I'll watch, but if it's boring matchup, who the fuck cares? You know? So I know they've kind of held up the playoffs and like when the dates that games are supposed to be played too. So I think with losing one of their major powers on the West Coast going to the Big Ten, I think they're going to start losing their a little bit. I think it's still going to be one of the New York Six, but I think they're not going. I don't think the playoff committee is going to listen to them unless it expands. Going with, oh, we're going to play around you. We're going to do things around you. They're just going to.
And that one's always dedicated Pac-12 Big Ten, right?
Yep. Unless I would say unless it was BCS and they had to send someone, or in the playoffs their Big Ten matchup would go to the playoffs. Then they occasionally had like TCU they had TCU Wisconsin because the Pac-12 had their participant out. And yes, Trent, my favorite Rose Bowl memory was hearing Iowa fans all that year talk about how great they were, and then Christian McCaffrey rip off a 75-yard run on the first play of the game. That was just like the riding high of a roller coaster, and then it just went downhill, but there was no fun screaming and everyone was happy. It was just it was kind of silent after that. So
that for me, like with that type of moment for me was when K-State was so good with Colin Klein or Calvin Klein, whatever his name is, and then that was when I lived in Kansas, and I love K-State fans. I know you feel different, Brian, but all the K-State fans I've met have always been super, super nice to me. But it was no one is ever going to beat K-State. K-State's the greatest thing on the planet, and they go against Oregon and just get fucking hammered.
Yeah. Dude, that Colin Klein, he was such an odd. I mean, and that's the fun thing about college sports, because I'm not sure if Trent had introduced him, but like George Niang, how slow he was in his speed, he shouldn't have been good, but he Colin Klein's it, and all of a sudden he can do his spin moves, and he just I don't know how to describe it. It's like that guy should be playing at the YMCA, but he's somehow
it was frustrating watching him because he had success doing things that he shouldn't have had success with.
Yeah, the exact same thing with Colin Klein, and you're just like, you're watching as a fan, you're going, how the fuck is this guy beating us? You know, it's not like, remember Pat White and Steve Slayton back in the day. Makes sense, they're super fast, we can't compete, but it's just like he was just a winner. Colin Klein, as much as I hate it, he was just a winner, you know, and it's more I did, you know, ever since football season stopped, I don't see Kansas State fans on my Twitter as much, and I don't really mind them now. Now, in a couple months when football starts, I will despise them when they start talking shit again. But Colin Klein is poor man's Tim Tebow.
That's kind of what I was going to say, actually.
Yeah, I think that's a dirt poor Tim Tebow for sure.
But it was just so funny because we even had a buddy that went to the game of Oregon versus K-State, and he's just like, dude, Oregon just has speed. You can't even tell on TV how much speed these guys have. It's incredible. And there was just never a chance K-State was ever going to compete with them. And that's part of fandom. I mean, you know, if LSU has a good season this year under BK, I'll be the same way. Like, nobody's beating these guys. We're going to be dancing the night away after we win our games. Basically, I'll be recording TikToks for the pod when you know, with LSU being awesome.
You'll be doing the manning. I think that's what you'll be doing.
I'll have my wife standing behind me, and we're just going to have a camera going around us, and we'll be just doing so much.
I just want to make sure we have Trent's comment here for the end. But I would say so. Well, and again, I do appreciate you logging in. I didn't want to make this too long of here, but I would say when you have big college football news, and I just fucking love college football, we got to talk about it. But I mean, any final thoughts that you had on the merger and everything else? I personally, I don't think it's done yet. I think the Big Ten tries to take the other brand. I think at least Oregon and Washington out of Pac-12. And I think the big fish that they got to hook first is Notre Dame. If they do that, they can take whoever they want, and now they've got the first mega conference. SEC can have 18 divisions, but they'll have the first mega conference 20 teams. So,
which one came first? It was Texas and Oklahoma going first before Cincinnati and the others went to Big 12, right?
Oh yeah. That's what spurred the move for them to get in.
So I feel like that was just the beginning. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of changes among the Big Ten. I don't think the SEC is done.
I agree.
The Pac-12 is definitely falling. I don't know what they'll do, but if they can keep Oregon, that's going to be their main moneymaker. If they can keep Oregon and Nike in their conference, then that's a win. But I think it's going to take a lot for that.
I personally think just because the Pac-12 has been so fucking mismanaged, you got USC, UCLA to Big Ten. I think Oregon, Washington join the Big Ten as well. I think if the Big 12, we didn't even talk about how the Big 12 has a new commissioner that came from like Rock Nation. He's represented all these celebrities. If you're going to show aggression or be a smart commissioner after you saw what fucking Bowlesby just did here and shit the bed with letting your two brands leave, I think you get aggressive and you go after Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and you try and bring Colorado back. And they're not the biggest brands, but I think then you have a 16 team somewhat geographically makes sense, roster. And I think you got adapt or die. You got to start getting to the mega conference status. If you want me to be very honest, I would be completely fine if we could almost do it like like NFL just trading team or trading athletes. I hope the Big 12 trades West Virginia for. I like playing West Virginia. Geographically, it doesn't make sense. If we could bring someone in from the ACC that's closer, like Louisville or whatever, I know it wouldn't happen, but it would just. I'm just getting stuck in the mindset of geographically makes more sense, but
at some point it's all just going to combine and we're going to have Conference America and just have divisions like in the NFL.
Yeah, AFC and NFC. I know that's where it's heading so far, but I don't know. I think if you're the Big 12, you get aggressive, get those 4 teams, and I think the Pac-12 dissolves. Unfortunately, I think I've heard a lot of legitimate concerns about Cal football because Stanford and Cal they have their prestige academically. Stanford's had a little football success, but I mean, I think you either go to the Mountain West or the school's done. The football program's done because well, I mean, what are we? I mean, they just geographically it makes sense. Where are you going to bring in Hawaii? I mean, I don't think you have enough teams that you're going to bring in. You're going to have to consolidate with the big. I would be kind of excited if they just completely consolidated with the Big 12, and now we just have a 24-team mega conference immediately. That's all established. Big or Power 5 teams, and now maybe a TV deal can come along where Big 12 is already ESPN owned. You think ESPN wouldn't be happy with being able to poach the Pac-12 and be able to have coast to coast full timelines? I mean, I think it would make sense, but that's why I'm sitting here doing this pod for free for the love of the game.
That's exactly right. No, and who knows? Maybe they'll get inventive and figure out a way to save the conference. So, I mean, just a couple of years back, people were saying the same thing about the Big 12. So who knows? They might be able to pull a rabbit out of their hat. But yeah,
it's better being on this side of it, Ryan. I can tell you, I've been loving hey, we should poach them rather than no, I know we're not going to die this year. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe they'll be inventive. There's just so much money out on the West Coast that they can probably try to figure something out. But from the outside looking in, it doesn't look good.
Yeah. So, well, I don't know. Maybe we'll during our hiatus, maybe we'll have another show where more shit happens. I can almost guarantee, like you said, we finally established. You know what? We're just going to take a break. Everything, and now we've had 2 pods this week. We're going to have a couple next week. It's just like when we say we're going to start at 8:30 and then my computer does a full fucking restart and we start at 8:45. That's the type of shit that happens on this pod. So.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, we're going to do this one on Monday night for Wednesday, and then you won't hear from us for like a month or two. And then, oh wait, never mind. We're gonna do combat on Thursday. Oh, you know what? Let's just do it. No, I love it. I'm glad we did this, especially since I missed out on Thursday.
And we could just focus on college football too. So then when we come back, we can talk about golf and everything else. But no, this one has definitely been fun. And again, I do appreciate everyone logging in. If you did, Trent, thank you for commenting. And hopefully if you watch or listen to this later, you can get a kick out of it and just kind of get a feel for some other people's thoughts if you haven't been talking to it. But if you're not watching live, the socials I would say for Instagram and Twitter is going to be at Heartland Pulse, and then Facebook and Twitter, where we're going to start posting, I think, more of our we're going to start posting more of these live shows on Facebook so we can start reaching out to you more. But Ryan, you got anything else before we wrap it up?
Nope, I don't have a whole lot.
Perfect.
River's trying to make an appearance there.
Well, it wouldn't be a Pulse of Heartland pod if River didn't make an appearance. So.
Yep.
But all right, man. Well, I appreciate you joining me, and I appreciate everyone for joining in.
Yep. Have a good